20 life lessons from the legend Bruce Lee. Who was Bruce Lee? Bruce Lee was more than a martial artist. He was a phenomenon. He was an extraordinary fighter whose speed, strength, and precision redefined what the human body could achieve. He was a profound philosopher who taught the world about discipline, balance, freedom, and the power of self-expression. He was a revolutionary who transformed martial arts forever, breaking old limits and creating a completely new path through Jeet Kune Do. He was a legendary film star who brought Asian culture to the global stage and changed the history of action cinema. He was a forward-thinking mind whose ideas about fitness, mindset, and human potential were decades ahead of his time. And above all, he became a global symbol of determination, courage, and personal freedom. A man whose legacy continues to inspire millions long after his passing. Bruce Lee's life is filled with powerful lessons that continue to inspire the world. And today we will explore 20 timeless life lessons we can all learn from the dragon himself. Lesson 1. Greatness can come from humble beginnings. Bruce Lee was born during hardship, grew up in chaotic Hong Kong, and still rose to global fame. Your starting point does not define your destiny. Lesson 2. Turn your weakness into strength. As a child, Bruce was small, often sick, and bullied. Instead of giving up, he transformed his body, mind, and spirit into symbols of power. Lesson 3. Discipline creates freedom. Bruce trained every day with relentless focus. His discipline in movement, philosophy, and life allowed him to break limits that held others back. Lesson 4. Be adaptable, be water. His most famous lesson teaches us to flow with life, or adjust to challenges, and never let rigid thinking block our growth. Lesson 5. Pain can shape purpose. Bruce's street fights, injuries, failures, and rejections pushed him to evolve, eventually creating Jeet Kune Do, a completely new martial philosophy. Lesson 6. Believe in your own vision even when others don't. Hollywood rejected him, said America wasn't ready for an Asian lead, but Bruce never stopped believing in his path. Lesson 7. Break the rules when necessary. Bruce refused to obey old traditions that restricted martial arts. Innovation often requires courage to question what already exists. Lesson 8. Use your mind as much as your muscles. Bruce was not only a fighter, he was a philosopher who understood that true strength begins in the mind. Lesson 9. Turn adversity into motivation. Every setback, street trouble, cultural barriers, Hollywood discrimination, only fueled Bruce to push harder. Lesson 10. Consistency beats intensity. Bruce improved daily, not through occasional bursts of effort, but through constant practice and refinement. Lesson 11. Self-expression is the highest form of freedom. Bruce believed martial arts and life should reflect your true self, not a copy of someone else. Lesson 12. Simplicity is power. Jeet Kune Do removed useless movements and focused only on what worked. Life becomes powerful when we remove the unnecessary. Lesson 13. Courage is acting despite fear. Bruce moved to America alone with almost no money. Fear existed, but courage was stronger. Lesson 14. Protect your inner peace. Even in chaos, Bruce trained his mind through meditation, reflection, and emotional control. Peace is a warrior's greatest weapon. Lesson 15. Lift others as you rise. Bruce taught students of all races at a time when this was controversial. He believed knowledge and opportunity should be shared, not protected. Lesson 16. Hard work defeats talent when talent stops working. Bruce had natural ability, but what made him legendary was his unstoppable work ethic. Lesson 17. Growth requires breaking your limits. Bruce constantly evolved, changing training methods, experimenting, and learning from every experience. Lesson 18. Leave a legacy through purpose, not lifespan. Bruce lived only 32 years, yet his impact continues forever. A meaningful life is measured by contribution, not time. Lesson 19. Stay hungry, stay curious. Bruce studied philosophy, psychology, anatomy, filmmaking, proving that lifelong learning builds limitless potential. Lesson 20. Believe that you can change the world. Bruce Lee did not simply dream. He acted, created, fought, learned, failed, and rose. His life teaches us that one determined person can transform generations. These 20 lessons remind us that Bruce Lee was more than a martial artist. He was a force of nature, a creator, a thinker, and a symbol of human possibility. When we apply these lessons, we don't just learn about Bruce Lee, we learn how to unleash the dragon within ourselves. 10 Greatest Achievements of Bruce Lee. 1. The man who brought Chinese martial arts to the world, Bruce Lee was the first to bring Kung Fu to Hollywood, allowing the entire world to discover the beauty of Asian martial arts culture. Father of Jeet Kune Do, he created a modern, flexible, and non-traditional martial arts philosophy, the foundation of what later became MMA. The first Asian superstar to conquer Hollywood. At a time filled with stereotypes, Bruce Lee broke through every barrier and became a global action film icon. Revolutionized martial arts cinema. He introduced the style of real fighting, real speed, real impact, ushering in a new era of action filmmaking. A profound martial arts philosopher, quotes like, "Be water, my friend," inspired millions, becoming timeless principles that go far beyond combat. Transformed the way fighters trained, Bruce Lee blended boxing, wrestling, fencing, cardio, weight training, and modern science, something no one had ever done before. A massive influence on global pop culture. He left his mark on music, fashion, video games, films, sports, and even the worldwide fitness movement. A symbol of overcoming adversity. From a weak, bullied child to a global legend, Bruce Lee became the ultimate example of determination, discipline, and self-confidence. Inspired generations of fighters and actors: Jackie Chan, Jet Li, Donnie Yen, Chuck Norris, Mike Tyson, Jean-Claude Van Damme, and many others considered him their hero. An eternal legacy in only 32 years. Despite his short life, Bruce Lee left behind a groundbreaking martial arts system, legendary films, powerful life philosophy, global cultural influence. Bruce Lee became an immortal legend, a man whose spirit transcends time. Bruce Lee was not born on an ordinary day. He entered the world on November 27, 1940, under the bright moon of the Year of the Dragon, in the bustling heart of San Francisco. In Chinese culture, a child born in the Year of the Dragon carries strength, destiny, and a spark of greatness. And somehow, Bruce Lee's life seemed to echo that belief from the very first breath he took. His father, Li Hoi Chuen, was a respected Cantonese opera performer who traveled the world with his troupe. His mother, Grace Lee, was a gentle, open-minded woman of mixed Chinese and European heritage. Because of them, Bruce was never bound to just one culture. From birth, he was a bridge between East and West, between tradition and the modern world, between the strict discipline of Chinese values and the freedom of American life. When Bruce was only 3 months old, his father carried him onto a film set. The crew needed a newborn for a quick scene, so baby Bruce was placed in front of a camera for the very first time. No one planned it. No one expected anything from it. Yet that tiny moment became the first step in a lifelong relationship between Bruce Lee and the world of cinema. After finishing the tour in the United States, the Lee family returned to Hong Kong. And it was there, between crowded markets, narrow alleys, and the echo of opera music drifting through old theaters, that Bruce's real childhood began. Hong Kong in the 1940s and 1950s was a chaotic, energetic, recovering city. It was a place full of hope and hardship, where wealth and poverty existed side by side, and where street gangs often fought openly to claim territory. In that world, Bruce grew up as a wild, energetic, unstoppable child. He could not sit still. He danced, jumped, and mimicked the movements of opera performers he watched backstage. His sense of rhythm and body control was exceptional, even as a young boy. Directors began to notice. By the age of 6, Bruce Lee was already appearing in films, quickly gaining popularity as a talented child actor. He had a natural presence, sharp eyes, expressive gestures, and a confidence far beyond his years. Film sets became his playground, and cameras became familiar companions. But behind the lights and applause was another reality, Outside the studio, Bruce lived in neighborhoods where fights erupted as easily as conversations. Teenagers formed small gangs. Rival groups clashed in back alleys, and school disputes often ended in bruises instead of apologies. Bruce, with his fiery temper and fearless nature, got into fight after fight. He didn't seek trouble, but he didn't back down from it either. If someone bullied his friends or challenged him, Bruce reacted instantly. His parents grew worried. Bruce was talented, yes, but he was also impulsive. His raw energy needed direction, discipline, and purpose. That was when his father introduced him to Wing Chun under the legendary master Ip Man. The first day Bruce stepped into Ip Man's training room, he was still full of street fighter habits, fast, chaotic, emotional. But Ip Man saw something deeper in him, sharp instincts, passion, and the potential to become far more than a neighborhood fighter. Wing Chun was unlike anything Bruce had known. It was calm, precise, controlled. It taught him that true strength is quiet, not loud, efficient, not flashy. Ip Man didn't just teach Bruce how to throw a punch, he taught him how to control himself. Short punches, direct strikes, simple movements. Everything in Wing Chun emphasized economy and purpose. Every drill, every stance, every repetition slowly reshaped Bruce's understanding of combat. And inside Bruce, something awakened. He began to see martial arts not as a way to win street fights, but as a path to master his own body and mind. The seed of a philosophy that many years later would grow into Jeet Kune Do, his revolutionary martial art, was planted during these early lessons. As Bruce entered his teenage years, he lived in two parallel worlds. Film sets, filled with costumes, scripts, laughter, and creativity. Training halls filled with discipline, repetition, sweat, and silence. These two worlds forged a unique identity within him. Martial arts gave him structure, acting gave him expression, the streets gave him speed, reflexes, and toughness. Yet Bruce's childhood was far from peaceful. His reputation as a fighter grew. So did the number of confrontations. Soon his parents realized that if Bruce remained in Hong Kong, he might be dragged into something far more dangerous than harmless teenage fights. The city was changing. The gangs were becoming more organized. Conflicts became more serious. And Bruce, bold, talented, stubborn, was standing at the center of it all, whether he intended to or not. Every step he took brought him closer to a turning point. A moment that would suddenly push him out of Hong Kong. A decision that would send him across the ocean, alone, with only a few dollars in his pocket, and toward a new life waiting for him in America. A life that would transform him from a troubled teenager into a global legend. Bruce Lee's teenage years were a whirlwind, fast, unpredictable, and filled with a mix of talent, rebellion, and unstoppable ambition. By the time he was 15, two things had become crystal clear. Bruce was growing into an exceptional martial artist, and he was also becoming a problem in Hong Kong's unpredictable streets. He was quick, too quick. He was confident, sometimes too confident, and with every fight he won, his reputation spread wider and faster than he could control. Bruce never intended to become a gang member, but the street culture of Hong Kong in the 1950s didn't care about intentions. Fights happened everywhere. Schoolyards, alleyways, movie sets. And Bruce often found himself in the center of them, drawn by an almost instinctive need to defend his pride or protect someone weaker. Some boys fought for dominance, some fought to impress others. Bruce fought because something inside him reacted before his mind could catch up. Speed, instinct, fire. He was a natural, but natural talent can be both a blessing and a curse. One afternoon, after yet another street fight that ended with the other kid being seriously injured, Bruce's parents realized something alarming. Their son was heading toward a future he could not escape if he stayed in Hong Kong. The gangs were taking notice of him, not as an enemy, but as a potential ally, and that was even more dangerous. Bruce was only 16, but already he understood the tension rising around him. Sometimes he returned home late, shirt torn, knuckles scraped, breath heavy with the adrenaline of conflict. His mother would scold him, his father would shake his head in frustration, But Bruce's heart burned with a restless flame he couldn't extinguish. Still, Ip Man's training was changing him slowly. In the Wing Chun studio, Bruce was not a street fighter. He was a student. He was a disciplined practitioner. He was a young man learning the meaning of control. He spent hours practicing Chi Sao, sticky hands, a drill that sharpened his reflexes to near superhuman levels. He trained footwork, straight punches, wooden dummy drills. Those repetitive movements helped calm his mind, shaping his raw aggression into refined skill. But outside the studio, Bruce still lived in a city where aggression was rewarded quicker than discipline. A turning point arrived one evening when Bruce got into a fight with the son of a powerful local figure. The details of the fight remain blurred in history. Some say it happened near a school, others say in a crowded street market. But everyone agrees on one thing. It changed Bruce Lee's life forever. The injured boy's family wanted revenge. Not a small argument, not a warning. They wanted to take Bruce down, legally or otherwise. And suddenly, the Lee family realized that Bruce's talent, courage, and rebellious spirit could no longer protect him. The danger was real, immediate, and impossible to ignore. His parents made a decision. Bruce had to leave Hong Kong. The news hit Bruce like a silent earthquake. He had grown up surrounded by friends, film studios, narrow alleyways, and Ip Man's peaceful training hall. Hong Kong was chaotic but familiar. It was home. Leaving meant stepping into the unknown. Leaving meant starting over. Leaving meant letting go of everything, but also discovering everything. Bruce was 17 when his father gave him a one-way ticket to America and a small amount of money, barely enough to survive the first weeks. They told him he needed discipline, education, and distance from the dangers closing in around him. Bruce didn't argue. Deep down, he knew they were right. In April 1959, Bruce Lee stood at Hong Kong's Kai Tak Airport, a slim teenager with sharp eyes, a restless heart, and a future nobody could yet imagine. His mother hugged him tightly. His father placed a hand on his shoulder and told him to stay focused, stay humble, and stay safe. And then Bruce boarded the plane. As the aircraft lifted into the sky, leaving behind the neon-lit streets and crowded markets, Bruce felt both fear and excitement collide in his chest. He looked out the window, watching Hong Kong disappear beneath the clouds. He was leaving the only world he had ever known, leaving the familiar chaos, leaving his past, both the achievements and the mistakes. But he also carried something precious with him: the discipline of Wing Chun, the confidence built from countless film roles, the resilience forged from street survival, and the hunger to prove himself. Landing in Seattle, Bruce entered America not as a celebrity, not as a fighter, not as a student, but as a young man starting from zero. He worked odd jobs, washing dishes and cleaning tables. He lived in a small rented room. He walked through streets where no one knew his name. For the first time, Bruce Lee tasted what it meant to be invisible. But invisibility didn't scare him. It challenged him. He used every spare moment to train, to improve, to think, to evolve. Wing Chun was in his bones, but now he could feel something else forming within him, an urge to create, to innovate, to go beyond the boundaries of any single martial art. America was confusing, unfamiliar, and lonely, but it was also full of possibility. And Bruce Lee, restless, curious, fiercely determined, stepped into this new world with the same fire that had carried him through the streets of Hong Kong. He did not know it yet, but the legendary transformation of his life had just begun. When Bruce Lee stepped off the plane in Seattle in 1959, he wasn't the confident figure the world would one day admire. He was a 17-year-old immigrant with barely $100 in his pocket, a single suitcase, and a future blurred by uncertainty. He had left behind fame, family, and familiarity, everything he once knew, in exchange for a chance to rebuild his life from the ground up. America was loud, bright, and overwhelming. The streets were wide, the buildings tall, the people strangers. Bruce felt like a small dot in a giant map, nameless and invisible. But invisibility was a gift he didn't know he needed. It stripped him of ego and forced him to see the world with new eyes. He settled into a tiny room above a Chinese restaurant run by Ruby Chow, a powerful and strict woman who had known his father back in Hong Kong. She gave Bruce a job bussing tables, cleaning, carrying dishes, wiping spills, work far removed from the glamour of film sets. But Bruce accepted everything without complaint. Hardship did not frighten him, stagnation did. During those early months, Bruce worked long hours, then trained alone after midnight in his cramped room. He shadowboxed silently in the dark, practiced Wing Chun footwork on the wooden floor, and rehearsed ideas that had begun to spark in his mind. In America, Bruce was free from expectations. For the first time, he could reinvent himself. He enrolled at Edison Technical School, determined to improve his English and catch up academically. Most immigrants struggled, but Bruce thrived. He had a sharp intellect, and once he set his mind on something, he pursued it with relentless intensity. His teachers remembered him not for his fame, but for his curiosity, always asking questions, always pushing boundaries. To make extra money, Bruce began teaching small groups of students the basics of Wing Chun. These sessions started informally, in parks, in parking lots, behind restaurants. But something magical happened. His students were fascinated not just by his speed and skill, but by the way he explained martial arts. Bruce didn't teach through tradition or memorize forms. He taught through principles, logic, and real-world application. He could articulate why a technique worked, not just how to perform it. This was rare. This was different, and word spread. Soon, Bruce had more students than he expected. They brought their friends who brought more friends. People from every background, Black, white, Asian, Latino, started gathering around him. Bruce was breaking barriers without even trying. He was doing something extremely controversial at the time, teaching Chinese martial arts to non-Chinese students. In Hong Kong, this was considered a betrayal. In America, it was revolutionary. But Bruce was not trying to rebel. He simply believed martial arts belonged to everyone. His growing confidence pushed him to dream bigger. In 1961, he enrolled at the University of Washington, studying philosophy. Philosophy would become one of the most important influences on his life. Bruce devoured books about Buddhism, Taoism, Western psychology, human movement, and personal freedom. His mind expanded far beyond the techniques of any single martial art. In classrooms, he discussed identity and self-expression. In notebooks, he scribbled ideas about combat efficiency and personal liberation. In training halls, he experimented relentlessly, mixing Wing Chun with boxing, fencing footwork, and street fighting instincts. Slowly, a new vision began to form, a vision that would one day become Jeet Kune Do, the style that broke every rule. But before Bruce could create something new, he had to survive. Money was always tight. He lived modestly, worked constantly, and trained obsessively. He often skipped meals to save money, sometimes eating only one full meal a day. Yet even in hardship, Bruce radiated confidence. He walked with purpose. He spoke with clarity. He carried himself like someone destined for greatness, even when life gave him nothing. His students admired him, not only for his abilities but for his character. He was strict but inspiring, pushing every student to overcome fear, hesitation, and self-doubt. Training with Bruce Lee was not just physical, it was psychological. He made people believe they could be more than they were. And then everything changed because of a single performance. In 1964, Bruce was invited to demonstrate martial arts at the Long Beach International Karate Championships. The event gathered the best martial artists from across America. It was meant to showcase established masters. No one expected a skinny 23-year-old Chinese kid to steal the show. But that's exactly what happened. Bruce stepped onto the stage with a calm, almost playful demeanor. He showed lightning-fast punches, incredible footwork, and the now legendary one-inch punch that sent a full-grown man flying backward. The audience erupted. Gasps, shouts, disbelief. Word of that performance spread like wildfire. Overnight, Bruce Lee went from a local instructor to a rising star in the American martial arts world. But fame was not his goal. His heart was chasing something much bigger, something that could only be found in the world of entertainment. Because deep inside, Bruce Lee knew one truth. He wasn't meant to be ordinary. He wasn't meant to stay hidden. He wasn't meant to be just another instructor teaching in a rented room. He was meant to change the world. And Hollywood was about to come calling. The Long Beach performance changed everything. That day, Bruce Lee had walked onto the stage as a talented but unknown instructor. He walked off as someone impossible to ignore. Martial artists whispered his name. Spectators replayed his demonstrations in their minds. Even seasoned fighters admitted privately that they had never witnessed anything quite like him. And one of the people watching that day was Jay Sebring, a famous Hollywood hairstylist with connections deep inside the entertainment industry. Sebring was stunned, not just by Bruce's speed, but by his charisma. There was something electric about him, something that pulled eyes toward him effortlessly. That same day, Sebring arranged a meeting between Bruce Lee and a rising television producer named William Dozier. It was the meeting that would open the first door to Bruce's Hollywood dream. When Bruce walked into Dozier's office, he didn't dress like a martial arts master. He dressed like a man who belonged on screen. Confident posture, sharp gaze, relaxed smile. Dozier asked Bruce to demonstrate some movements, and Bruce did so with the same explosive precision he showed in Long Beach. Kicks that blurred, punches that cracked the air, footwork that flowed like water. Dozier was impressed, very impressed. He immediately cast Bruce in a small screen test, one that would later circulate through Hollywood as the most unique martial arts audition ever recorded. In the test, Bruce explained martial arts philosophy, demonstrated techniques, and spoke with a clarity that captured the room. He wasn't just a fighter. He was a teacher, a thinker, a storyteller. Hollywood had found something new. In 1966, Bruce landed the role of Kato in the TV series The Green Hornet. It was a breakthrough, the moment many young actors dream of. When the show aired, Bruce's fight scenes stole the spotlight. His quick, sharp movements were unlike anything America had seen. Viewers didn't know the name Wing Chun, but they knew one thing. Bruce Lee moved like lightning. Kids pretended to be Kato. Fans tuned in just to watch him fight. For the first time, an Asian character wasn't portrayed as weak or silent. He was strong, skilled, and heroic. But Hollywood, even in its fascination, was not ready. The Green Hornet was canceled after just one season. Bruce's breakout role vanished before it could truly bloom, leaving him stuck in a system that didn't know what to do with an Asian actor who refused to play stereotypes. He was offered roles as servants, villains, caricatures, roles that insulted his identity and wasted his potential. Bruce said no, again and again. And those refusals came with a price. Work dried up, bills piled up, opportunity shrank. Still, Bruce didn't break. He continued teaching martial arts to support his family. His classes in Los Angeles attracted celebrities: Steve McQueen, James Coburn, Roman Polanski. These weren't just students. They were admirers, people who believed Bruce was ahead of his time. In late 1964, before Hollywood fame, Bruce had married Linda Emery, the woman who would become his anchor through storms and setbacks. Together, they had their first child, Brandon, in 1965. Fatherhood deepened Bruce's determination. He wasn't just chasing dreams anymore. He was building a future for his family. His school grew, his reputation grew, but Hollywood still kept its doors half closed. Then came one of the most important and controversial events in Bruce Lee's life: the showdown with Wong Jack Man, a traditional martial arts practitioner from San Francisco. According to tradition, Chinese martial arts were not to be taught to non-Chinese students. Bruce's refusal to obey this unspoken rule made him enemies. They challenged him. Some say demanded he stop teaching outsiders. Others say it was a fight for pride. The accounts differ, but the outcome is clear. The challenge happened. The fight was fast, brutal, and decisive. Bruce won, but he left the room furious, not at his opponent, but at himself. He felt the fight had lasted too long, that his techniques were too rigid, too restricted by tradition. That moment changed the trajectory of his martial philosophy. He began tearing apart everything he knew: Wing Chun forms, classical techniques, long training sequences. He removed anything that was unnecessary, anything that was slow, anything that was merely beautiful rather than effective. His notebooks filled with new ideas, new strategies, new theories about movement, reaction, and efficiency. From this storm of creativity and frustration emerged the seed of what would become Jeet Kune Do, the way of the intercepting fist, a martial art based on simplicity, directness, and personal freedom. Bruce was evolving, but Hollywood was still not moving. He proposed a series called The Warrior, based on a martial artist wandering through the American West. The studio loved the concept, but refused to cast him as the lead because he was Asian. The role eventually went to a white actor. Bruce was devastated. It was the clearest reminder that Hollywood's door was not closed because he lacked talent. It was closed because of discrimination. Yet rejection only sharpened his resolve. Bruce Lee never stepped back from a challenge. He stepped forward. By 1971, Bruce Rui Kin realized something crucial. America might not recognize his worth, but Hong Kong would. His films there as a child were still remembered. His martial arts reputation had become legendary, and opportunities were waiting across the ocean. So once again, Bruce Lee packed his bags. Once again, he boarded a plane. Once again, he left behind comfort for the unknown. He was returning to Hong Kong. But this time, he was not a boy escaping trouble. He was a man returning to claim his destiny. And in the next chapter, the world would witness Bruce Lee transform from a struggling actor into a cinematic phenomenon, the birth of a legend whose impact would echo across generations. When Bruce Lee returned to Hong Kong in 1971, he wasn't prepared for the shock that awaited him. He walked through the airport with a sense of uncertainty, wondering if anyone still remembered the films he had made as a child. To his surprise, the moment he stepped off the plane, people began turning their heads. Some whispered, some gasped, others ran closer, eyes wide with recognition. Bruce thought they were confusing him with someone else, but they weren't. Hong Kong remembered him, not as a minor actor, but as Kato, the masked hero from the Green Hornet. The show had been canceled in America, but it had become wildly popular in Hong Kong under the name The Kato Show. Audiences adored his speed, his charisma, and the way he moved like a storm wrapped in silk. Bruce Lee had left America feeling overlooked. He arrived in Hong Kong to find himself a superstar. Producers rushed to offer him contracts. Studios begged for meetings. Reporters followed him everywhere. After years of rejection, the sudden attention felt surreal. But Bruce was not someone who accepted fame passively. He intended to use it. One studio in particular, Golden Harvest, saw Bruce not as a sidekick, but as a leading man. Its founder, Raymond Chow, understood Bruce's potential and gave him something no Hollywood studio had ever dared: complete creative freedom. Bruce agreed to make 2 films with Golden Harvest. The first would change everything. The Big Boss. The Return of the Dragon Begins filming The Big Boss in Thailand was chaotic. Heat, mosquitoes, long nights, tiny budgets. But Bruce brought a level of intensity that no one had seen before. He choreographed fights that felt real, sharp, and explosive. His punches didn't look staged, they looked dangerous. His kicks sliced the air like blades. When the film premiered, theaters overflowed. Crowds lined the streets. People pushed, shouted, climbed onto cars just to get a glimpse of the screen. The Big Boss smashed every box office record in Hong Kong history. Overnight, Bruce Lee became the most famous man in Asia. But he didn't pause to celebrate. He didn't slow down. He moved straight into his next film. Fist of Fury, an icon is born unlike The Big Boss, which was raw and violent. Fist of Fury burned with emotion. Bruce played Chen Zhen, a student seeking justice for his master's death, fighting oppression with righteous fury. The film wasn't just entertainment, it was catharsis. It spoke to the frustrations and pride of Chinese audiences living under foreign influence. When Bruce kicked down the "No Dogs or Chinese Allowed" sign on screen, the theater erupted. People cheered, cried, and pounded their fists. That moment became symbolic, not just of cinematic power, but of cultural awakening. Fist of Fury broke the records that The Big Boss had created. Bruce Lee wasn't just a movie star anymore. He was a national hero. But Bruce had bigger dreams than fame. He wanted to direct, choreograph, write, and reshape martial arts cinema. He wanted to share not only his body's power, but his mind's philosophy. Hollywood had rejected him. Hong Kong embraced him, but Bruce wanted to shape his own destiny, so he took the next step. Way of the Dragon, Bruce Lee becomes a creator. Bruce wrote the script. Bruce directed the film. Bruce choreographed every fight. Bruce shaped every movement, every camera angle, every moment of tension. Way of the Dragon was the world's first true Bruce Lee film, unfiltered, unaltered, unrestrained. He created a story that blended humor, action, and philosophy. He flew the cast to Rome for filming, stretching the tiny budget to its limit. And then he designed what would become one of the most iconic fight scenes in movie history. Bruce Lee versus Chuck Norris in the Colosseum. Two martial arts titans, one ancient battleground, pure raw combat. The fight was not just physical, it was symbolic. Bruce designed it to show evolution, the triumph of adaptability over rigidity, of speed over strength, of awareness over aggression. It was Jeet Kune Do expressed through cinema. When the film premiered, critics adored it, audiences worshipped it, and Bruce Lee became a global phenomenon. But behind the success, something deeper was happening. The birth of Jeet Kune. Bruce had been evolving as a martial artist since the fight with Wong Jack Man. He had torn down traditional forms, questioned the limits of every technique, and explored the psychology of combat. He read philosophy, neuroscience, boxing manuals, fencing principles. He experimented, failed, rebuilt, experimented again. And from that chaos emerged something revolutionary. Jeet Kune Do, the way of the intercepting fist. Unlike traditional martial arts, Jeet Kune Do had no fixed stances, no memorized forms, no rigid doctrine, no cultural boundaries. It was fluid, it was adaptable, it was personal, it was freedom. Be water, my friend, Bruce said. Water takes the shape of whatever contains it. That is how you must move. That is how you must live. Jeet Kune Do wasn't a style. It was a mindset, a philosophy, a way of life, and Bruce was ready to share it with the world. But greater challenges were coming, bigger than Hollywood rejection, bigger than street fights, bigger than philosophical conflict. Bruce's body was being pushed to limits no human should endure. The pressure of fame, the intensity of training, the demands of filmmaking, they were all building toward a point of no return. And as Bruce prepared for the most ambitious film of his life, Enter the Dragon, he didn't know that destiny was preparing its final test.